the stinger. Right, transitioning over in three, two, one. Hello and welcome to Dungeons and Discussions, our monthly podcast where we talk about all things Dungeons and Dragons related. And today we are talking about character creation, kind of a part two of what we did last episode. Last episode, we delved into the background and kind of creative aspects of where your character is coming from. And now we're going into the whole mechanics, the nuts and bolts of everything, to the character sheet, where we're going to determine things like stats and AC, all things like that. We'll get into it. And I'm not here just by myself. I'm obviously joined by my lovely co-host, Times Dungeon. How's it going?
I'm alive.
That's a mood. That's a mood.
So yeah, like was already mentioned, we'll be going over the character sheet, how to fill one out, whether you be a new player, experienced player. We're going to be going over like how to fill it out manually, like by hand, like we've been doing for years and years and years for those of us who've been around a while. And also, there are a ton of sites out there that allow you to sort of auto fill it in by just selecting options. And Roll20's got a great feature for that, which we will be going over as well.
Absolutely. You see that up on our screens, and if you have not already, check out our links, our multi-links to look at both streams that I just linked in my chat, as well as our openings for being a guest on the show, as well as our monthly giveaway that we're going to be dealing with at the end of this episode. Thank you very much again to our lovely sponsors, Never Ending. They've been fantastic so far, and I've loved interacting with them this entire way. So yeah, definitely check those out if you are interested. There is some character art done just, for free by our sponsor on the line if you're so inclined.
Which reminds me, I need to.
I set up the wheel.
Oh, I got the wheel I'll set up in a minute.
Okay.
Add the art that we made last month to this character sheet.
Yes. Yes, or a lovely goblin shanty. I think we should have naming her at the end.
Yeah, it was something like that.
I'm pretty sure. They're just like, oh, that's a cool name. Because
Yeah.
they chose the sailor background, and oh my gosh.
So yes, character sheets, they are fairly easy once you know what you're doing with them. They didn't used to be. We won't get into fourth edition or 3.5 or even second edition.
I mean, even 5e, like I don't have experience with any of the other editions of D&D character sheets, but the first time I filled out a 5e one, I was like, what is happening here? Like there are so many boxes, there are so many things. And of course, I decided to make it like very hard on myself to play a wizard the first time. So like there was so much going on. So yeah, it can be very daunting at first, but once you fill out one or two of them, it definitely gets a lot easier. So no worries if you see just this wall of text and different things and have no idea what it means. It's gonna be okay.
Now, something that a lot of people don't know is you don't have to stick to just the standard character sheet that's given to you in 5e or the PDFs that they offer. There are actually character sheets out there designed by the community for people with dyslexia. They got character sheets for. They actually have some Braille character sheets you can order and have filled
Okay,
out.
cool. I didn't know that. I
But
know they
yeah,
make large text ones too for people that are more sight impaired, um, or the opposite of me. I'm nearsighted, so it's usually not a problem. If anyone farsighted might be more of a problem.
but yeah, I've had a player, see, about 3 years ago, maybe four now. Um, she was legally blind, and she showed up to the uh, game store that I used to DM at and do how-to sessions, wanting to learn to play. And we sat down together to fill out her character sheet, and she ended up going online right there in the comic shop with me and two others with a laptop, and ordered herself some Braille character sheets that were already filled out, and all she had to do was like feel them and everything. They were amazing when they came in.
So cool.
I think it took them 3 weeks to come in, and it was already filled out. Like, not only was it filled out to the point to where she could read it by just feeling it, but there was also text there as well, so the rest of us could read it if we needed to.
Yeah, that's really cool. I've never heard of that, so that's amazing that that's out there. Um, Yeah, and then like not even just for accessibility, there are a lot of just creative formats of character sheets that people have made that I love seeing them. Honestly, like I love the ones that like hit points are in like a little heart or something, and they're like yeah, they're just different like shapes to further distinguish things. So it's very creative, but also like people that associate things more with like shape or color, like helps a whole lot. So I always really like seeing those. Just I see them on my Twitter timeline every once in a while, and it's like, oh, that's so cool. I'm gonna keep this maybe for later.
Um, but I know there's sites like olddungeonmaster.com. There's, I think it's Flapcan. TF Recipes, I think, also has auto fill out sheets for anyone that is wanting to stick to by the book characters, no homebrew, nothing like that. Um, but they don't want to, or they have troubles writing themselves. They can actually go to these sites and just click on what feats they want, have it roll for them, just anything, and it will automatically fill out the character sheet for you instead of you having to go everything box by box by hand. But otherwise, it's the player's handbook essentially will tell you how to do it step by step. It's real easy when if you have the player's handbook with you, or another experienced player can help you out along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think I have too many more things to add. We're just gonna hop into making this character.
Now, here's a question to you. So, Roll20's autofill is called Character Mancer. Do we want to use
Hmm.
it first and then go through the boxes and fill out everything by hand? Or do we want to do fill out by hand first or and then do the autofill?
Ooh. I
I like
feel like
I like doing the
what?
autofill myself
Okay. Okay.
only because it's easier to explain where things go later. It's already filled out and I can just point and go through that way.
Yeah, let's go with it.
So, like I said, in Roll20, it's called Character Mancer, but others they call it different things. Um, it just tells you what it does here. I'm going to click Next. Now, with the Character Mancer, as you can see, it already has my Strength, Dex, Con, Intelligence, and Wisdom, Charisma, all just dashes currently. It gives you the option to customize your origin and or choose your race. Since we chose Goblin, we're going to go with
We
Goblin down
chose
here.
Goblin.
And this, what I like about the Character Mancer that others don't show you, is you'll see the abbreviation for the book. So if you want, I forget what all of them are, but like Volvo's Guide versus Eberron versus whatever, you can choose them. And if there are differences in those books, it'll automatically apply them.
It's super cool. I mean, I usually make my characters on D&D Beyond. So it does kind of step by step like this too. So to see it on another platform is really interesting.
Um, and then, of course, it automatically tells you the ability score improvements. Now, if we did customize Origin or one of those others where you get to choose, you can just choose. It'll allow you to do that. I'm just going to stick with what it gives me automatically here. Alignment. Now, we can go through here. See, it's a goblin. We see the racial traits, ability score improvement, the age range of most goblins. We see the rough alignment of maybe I want to stick to what the book says. Maybe I don't. You don't have to. This just tells you what the book or people in the campaigns see these races as. It gives you their size, everything over here already that you can just look through and get a quick read through of. So we know when we get to a character sheet, if we were to fill out by hand and we chose Goblin, we would have to write in their speed is 30 feet. We'd have to write in that they have dark vision. And an experienced player will automatically know what dark vision means, but a newer player may have to write all this out either on a second sheet or in the box where the feats go. You got Fury of the Small, that will automatically be added to the character sheet. Nimble Escape, and it says we get to choose languages outside of Common and Goblin. So for alignment, what did we want Shanty to be?
Ooh. I don't know. I feel like she's like pretty rough and tumble, so maybe like a chaotic alignment of some kind.
Chaotic Neutral, there we go.
Yeah, let's do it. Chaotic neutral.
It automatically says the size is small, so that's good. We ain't got to write that in. Speed's 30. Like I said, it's already filled out here. Languages are the same. I can read, speak, and write in Common and Goblin. It automatically says I have Dark Vision, Fury of the Small, and Nimble Escape, and it tells me exactly what those do. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Next. And with the Character Mancer or any of the autofills that I have used, you don't have to go in order. You can hop back and forth. But we're just going to go in order. Now for class, we chose, was it Fighter or Barbarian? I forget.
Ooh. I think we chose Barbarian, if I'm not mistaken.
Alright. So like most of them, once you choose class, it'll tell you about that class over here. Or even if you're not sure what class you want, you just select it over here and you can always change it and read about the class. It tells you their weapon proficiencies, armor proficiencies, so this will automatically be filled in on the sheet once you've completed this and get to the review section. Skill proficiencies. What skill proficiencies we want? We got choices of animal handling, athletics, intimidation, nature, perception, and survival.
Ooh. I mean, I'm always like really partial to choosing nature as a skill because like most people don't have it.
I choose survival for the same reason.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll choose nature, and the second one we'll choose survival.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
So it tells
I
you
mean, it
here.
makes sense. She's a sailor.
True. So here it gives you it tells you about rage, what happens with rage, strength checks, yada yada yada. It tells you about unarmored defense, and it tells you for equipment you get explorer's pack, javelins, any martial weapon, hand axes, and a simple weapon. So we're gonna go to abilities. Now, for any of you new players, depending on how your DM runs their game, you'll either run a standard array, roll for stats, point by, or a custom homebrew style. How do you want to do it?
Just I'm not actually sure how easy each thing is
Roll
on roll
20.
20. Yeah, is it like is rolling
So
easier?
so standard rate automatically puts them here, and I get to choose like where I want these stats. Point by says I got 27 points. I can put them wherever I want. And then roll for stats, I actually automatically rolls and gets rid of the lowest, and we'll put those numbers in these areas. So what do you or chat want?
Let's go with rolling it. Sorry, I just got a raid. Ollie, thank you so much for the raid.
All right,
Big love.
so roll for stats. Roll 4d6, drop lowest. I may have clicked it twice. All right, so okay, good. It went to the top one. So as you see here, we got 12, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. We got really good stats.
Yeah, wow.
So, of course, we being a barbarian, we want high strength, so I'm going to put 16 in that.
For sure.
Dexterity, we already got a +2 in, so I think we should put the 14 in that. And then Constitution, we have a +1. That's another major stat for barbarians, so we'll put the 15 in that. And then Intelligence, Wisdom, Charisma. Which two do we want as dump stats?
Ooh. Considering like we want to be someone who's good at navigating, I don't think wisdom should be a dump stat. Um, um, hmm. I feel like charisma should be like
All
a
right.
salty, rappy sailor.
All right, so we'll put the 13 in Wisdom and 12 in the other two. So it's literally that easy when you're using a Charactermancer or a lot of these automatic character creators. You just roll and you can punch them in, and sometimes you actually have to roll dice and then type in what you want. But this one, like I said, it automatically rolls for you, and you can just select.
Though for chat, while it is recommended to, have high stats and things your class is supposed to be good at, you don't have to, technically. I mean, know that there are some mechanical detriments to that. I will give a disclaimer with that, but you don't have to if you want things to be a little spicy, a little interesting. Like, last episode I was talking about Ponos, a satyr played by Aldebiffer on TPK Roleplay, is a rogue that has a negative dex, and it's interesting for sure.
I had a barbarian once that I gave 7 strength to. He was extremely smart and used his head for everything.
There you go. I'm not sure if you mean like actually like thinking things through or going, the old Hercules route and, just hitting things with your head. That scene will always stick with me.
He actually used his head like smarts. Like
Okay.
he knew like the proper angles. He would have to swing a sword, or like to how much weight would need to be like a counterbalance to cause more damage and that sort of thing. Background, we did choose Sailor, so we're going to choose Sailor again. So it automatically tells us what skill proficiencies we get with this. It tells us tool proficiencies as well. And then we get to choose personality traits. I tell my players, you don't have to choose these. It's fine if you want to roll. It's fine if you don't want to roll and just choose what you want. Or you can actually create your own. But try to give them ideal, a bond, and a flaw at the least.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're just going to roll all of them.
Oh, that's going to be interesting.
So it never passes up a friendly wager.
Okay.
I like a job well done, especially if I can convince someone else to do it. Seems fair. Uh,
This is very chaotic neutral, so yes, this is tracking.
ideal is fairness. We all do the work, so we all share in the reward. Bond is I always remember my first ship, and flaw, my pride will probably lead to my destruction.
Ooh. Okay.
So now equipment. You can either go starting wealth for those that are watching if you are creating this character, or you could go class equipment. Uh, to ask your DM about this. That's my main point on this here, because I always ask my players start with starting equipment, because a lot of times my campaigns don't start in a tavern or a town, so you ain't got time to buy equipment. You're on the road already, either just waking up in the swamps surrounded by others that were either kidnapped, or you're in a jail or something like that, so you ain't gonna have this stuff unless you're starting with it.
And depending on if you aren't starting at level one, this is all under the assumption that, we're starting at level one with Chanty here. If you're starting a campaign at a higher level, there is a more likelihood that you will be given more equipment or just gold to buy kind of like what you like out of a particular list. This could include magic items, things like that. So yeah, it's just definitely something to communicate with your GM beforehand.
And character creation, depending on your DM GM, will probably happen session 0 with others around, and you'll probably already be told this stuff. But if you're not, if you're just jumping into a campaign either midway, or like was mentioned earlier, you just you're brought in on it and you're starting at a higher level. And there's either no session 0 or you're expected to have your character ready by session 0. That's the time to talk to your DM about what to get, what not to get, what magic items you may be allowed to have, stuff like that.
Yeah, and Mr. Rogers brings up a really good point in chat if it's high fantasy or low fantasy. So there might not even be things like magical items or things like that. And another thing that I want to bring up is a part of character creation that a lot of people kind of just ignore, and it's rolling for trinkets that your characters have. It is so interesting, and I love it. I absolutely love it when my players are able to think of some creative way to use like these miscellaneous trinkets that aren't really supposed to do anything, but like they find a use for it and it's very creative. I love it so much. So don't skip out on the trinket table in the book. Or if there's like some other one that your table is using, don't skip on that.
Or if you're doing a paladin or a cleric and you get your I forget what it's called, like an alms box or a priest box, don't forget about that. I've had players go around towns collecting money to use for themselves, but saying it was for the church of whatever.
The Church of Myself.
Essentially, yes. I mean, those little things that seem mundane can be useful depending on how you want to think about it, how you want to roll with it. And some DMs may or may not let you. It just depends on what the campaign setting is.
For sure.
So we get Explorer's Pack and Javelins. We have 4 Javelins, but we get a martial weapon.
Ooh, okay.
We got a long list here: Battle Axe, Blowgun, Flail, Glaive, Great Axe, Great Sword, Halberd, Hand Crossbow, Heavy Crossbow, Lance, Longbow, Longsword, Maul, Net, Pike, Rapier, Scimitar, Short Sword, Trident, War Pick, Warhammer, and a Whip.
See, a lot of those like, warhammers and like axes and stuff are like the obvious thing to kind of use, but I really kind of like the idea of a blowgun.
Mr. Rogers
I'm
says Trident.
casting Trident. Oh, you purple.
We're going Trident.
Using Trident. Okay, we're going Trident. Maybe we're a sailor, so that makes sense.
So, simple weapon, or 2 hand axes. So we got club, dagger, dart, great club, hand axe, javelin, light crossbow, light hammer, mace, quarterstaff, short bow, sickle, sling, spear, and of course the two hand axes.
You know, I'm gonna leave this one up to chat too. What do you think,
Yeah,
chat?
I'm bouncing back and forth between the chats. Two hand axes.
Two hand axes? Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, we already do have javelins.
So we have javelins. There's two for crossbow now, and then two hand axes. We'll do crossbow.
All right, let's do it.
All right. Now, if you look here, the equipment from background. This is already saying that we get a belaying pin, we get silk rope, a lucky charm of some sort, we get common clothes, belt, pouch. So these will automatically be added to the character sheet when we get to that point. You as a player may want to think of what kind of charm do you have? What does the pin look like? What kind of common clothes are you wearing? That sort of stuff.
That's where a lot can get filled in by character art creators, like Pepper Ending, like we used with Shanty's art. A lot of that can be filled in, kind of inspired by that.
Yeah. So as you see here, being we're a barbarian, we have no spells. So it says arcane is a mystery to you. So we're just gonna click next. Feats, we ain't gonna have any yet. Bio. This is where I've seen players just skip this entirely and works just fine. But others like to put more detail into their character. Their age, their height, their weight, eyes, hair, skin. You don't have to go full in on these. And like I said, with the Charactermancer the way it is, it tells you over here like the age of goblins. They reach adulthood at age 8. And they live up to 60 years old. So you can choose an age within that range. You don't have to, but you can. It also tells you here the size, so you can fill it out based on that.
Be scared of. Oh my god. Oh my chat. I love the chat. It's okay, but yeah, I'm usually one of the players that skips this kind of thing, and then my DM will ask, "How much does your character weigh?" And I'm like, "I don't know." So don't be like me. Fill out things like that because it can be important sometimes.
Uh, I
But
would.
yeah, out of anything, things like hair color, eye color, it's like you should probably just know that anyway. So there probably isn't a need to fill that out as much.
So height and weight, in my opinion, there is a need, but like I said, I've had players skip it, and the reason for this is I've actually had puzzles where the players had to add so much weight to, say, a floor tile or something like that to trigger the door locks or to trigger this event. I've also had some to where I. So one of my favorite stories that I've done is in the past. I did a thing called Centaur Games. Think of like the county fair, but instead, or even the like Renaissance festival, essentially, where you have people running with lances on horses. Well, instead of this, you rode centaurs, and then there was a centaur race where you could ride a centaur around, and there was all these other things, but you had to be so tall to ride any of the rides. So, like the halfling out of commission, the gnome out of commission.
Fortunate. Yeah, I was like, I can't tell you like how many times like weight has come up in campaigns, and I've just been like, I don't know, my character's probably vaguely this much. I haven't really thought about it that much.
Have I eaten today? But for those that are wondering about the Centaur games, even though the gnome and the halfling weren't tall enough to ride, they threw on a long jacket and stood on each other's shoulders to ride the rides. It was funny. But we're going to skip this for now. So most of the auto creators that I have worked with have a review section, including this one, and it goes through and it tells you what you've chosen, just like a short review of everything that you've chosen. However, with this one, if any of the text there is red, that means you chose something wrong or have duplicated a choice between your class and your background or something like that. But since we have no red text there, that means we're good to go. And it's just building character, and bang, everything's filled out for us.
Ta-da!
So I want to talk.
15 hit points.
Yeah, whopping 15 at level 1.
Amazing.
One thing that I would like to talk about that's a bit of a debate for TTRPGs, especially D&D, is where you put the number, where you put the modifier, where you put score, and where you put the modifier. In my opinion, it doesn't matter.
This is the age-old question.
I do recommend, I mean, it's easy to tell when you're an experienced player, but if you are DMing for a group of brand new players, tell them the way you as the DM would like to see it. That way they're all the same. You ain't gotta worry about it. If it's a group of experienced players that you don't care how they do it, let them do it that way, however they want. But make sure that someone knows what your character sheet is set up like. So, for instance, if you have to leave mid-session or middle of combat, and say you have a family emergency, you have to leave the table, you can just slide your character sheet over someone and have them play for you, so that way it doesn't have to stop. A lot of times it will stop, but this way there's a way that at least someone knows how you have your character sheet set up.
You're tracking resources, things like that. Like, we have a barbarian here, so now we're going to be thinking about how we're tracking the number of rages that we have, because barbarians only have a certain amount of them. So it's very important because I've had players that track them in all different ways. They track them like on separate sheets of paper, on the character sheet, just kind of, I don't know, in their heads, I guess. Like, I don't really know how they do it. It's just a lot. So definitely communicate with your fellow table members how you're tracking your things.
And this goes not only for rage, but for, like it says on this character sheet, other resources. So that's bolts, arrows, throwing axes, anything like that that you may have multiple of. You want to put on your character sheet, and depending on what character sheet you have, you may have just 2 boxes here, you may have 4, you may have 6. It just depends. I've actually had a player who carried always 20 arrows, and he used a spin down counter from like Magic the Gathering to keep track of how many he had. So now that we have our character sheet, we'll talk essentially what is where. So along the left side where you have all these boxes, these are your ability scores and their modifiers. Your modifiers get added to your d20 roll of whatever is being asked for. So for instance, if this barbarian was getting entangled cast on him, he'd have to do a strength save or saving throw, or he may need to do a strength check in order to push a boulder. So what you do is you'd roll your d20, and then you add your modifier. For this instance, it's be a 3. So this would automatically do it for us when we just click strength. But otherwise, it's just a d20, which we rolled a 5. So with the plus 3, it gives us 8.
Hope.
My rolls suck lately, let me tell you.
Good to know. Good to know. Yeah. Those Yeah, like probably mentioned, those little check marks next to different things on here means you're proficient in the thing, which means your character is good at them, basically. Just kind of has a natural inclination, although you can accrue different proficiencies as you gain levels. Like certain feats kind of give you extra skills on things, or the I think it's the resilient feat gives you an extra proficiency in a save. Um, and just things like that to keep track of. So yeah, super important that you're checking those things or circling those things in terms of expertise, which basically means you're really good at that thing, and you get to add your proficiency bonus twice.
Yeah, and you can do this any number of ways. You can put a check in the box. You can circle it. Um, I've had people just put like a dash in the box, and then whenever they become get the expertise of that skill or save, they'd make it a X in that box. I've had people highlight it with yellow when they're proficient and orange when they're expertise in it. So, like was already said, you got your proficiency bonus, which is up top, the second row from the left. At low levels, you start off with proficiency bonus of 2. Goes up from there every, I forget how many levels it is, but um, you just check that whenever you do your rolls. Then below that, you have your saving throws. These are your actual abilities, and they're saves. So if you have to, and a save is anything that when an enemy is casting it on you, or an environmental effect is happening to you, you have to do a save. If it's something that you are doing to the environment or to an enemy, it is going to be a check.
And whether that's an ability check or some type of skill check is kind of depending on what's going on, what your GM is going to ask you to do. Because, like, as specific as some of these skills are, they're in comparison to like previous editions or Pathfinder, for example. They're pretty wide umbrellas. So it might just go down to ability checks because it's really falling under any of the skills. Um, it just depends.
Yeah, and again, as you look at those skill checks, you have acrobatics, animal handling, arcana, athletics, and so on. And you'll see different modifiers beside each one. The ones with the checks, like was mentioned before, are the ones you're proficient in. And it also, on this character sheet, not all character sheets, but on this particular one that Roll20 uses, it actually tells you what skill is associated with those, or what ability is associated with those skills.
Exactly, and rip a Constitution for not having any skills associated with it. I still think about that. Like that's just unfortunate.
It it is, but at the same time, Constitution can be used in so many ways.
Exactly. That's also fair. That's also fair.
Poisons and psionic attacks and stuff like that is all your con usually, um, or wisdom sometimes, but most of the time it's con. I always think a con is your willpower essentially. Um, so below that you have your passive wisdom perception. Now, even though 5e character sheets do not show it, in 3.5, in 4th edition, I think even in 2nd edition, all your abilities had passive skills associated with them. So, for instance, if you're just like running and jumping from platform to platform and it wasn't very far apart, you would need a passive dex score of like a 10 to make it all the way across uh, without having to roll. Rolls would be for your larger jumps, or maybe you're trying to jump and dive or jump and slide. That would be a roll. But in 5e, it's pretty much just passive wisdom that's used. I know some DMs still break down um, some other passives, you can. There's plenty of notes on it in the Dungeon Master's Guide. But right now our character's got a passive perception of 13. So that means anytime they're walking and say walking through town, they will notice a good chunk of things because it's passively looking, just your typical looking around town, not actually like staring down and trying to find the slightest detail on a wall.
You know, it's actually not a horrible passive perception for a level 1 character. I mean, that surprised me.
And I want to bring up something since we're talking about passive perception. I had a player who had a 23 passive perception. And she got mad at me because her character didn't see this ooze on the door. And you would think with that high of passive perception, you would see everything. Most players do. However, she was standing, say, out at the street, at the road, and there was 2 players between her and the door. One was on the steps, and the other one was actually in front of the door. Passive perception does not allow you to see through things. So if there's a branch in your way, if there's a tree in your way, if there's a person in your way, you ain't going to be able to see what's beyond them. A lot of people forget that.
That and like things like oozes and mimics and things like that are not super detectable. I'm pretty sure there are various abilities that like help them bypass a lot of detection unless you're actively messing with whatever it is.
Yes, a lot of things do, but this wasn't like a ooze creature. This was, well, it was a trail left by an ooze creature.
Oh, okay.
And she was mad that she didn't see it. And I'm like,
Ah.
there's people in your way. You can't see through them. You don't have x-ray vision.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel them because I have a druid with a very high passive perception as well. I think it's like 24 or something at this point. Like it's up there, and I always feel like I'm like the bane of my GM's existence, though. For being like, wait, do I see that?
And some DMs, it's not whether they're good DMs or not. But a lot of people say, well, that's because you're a good DM. No. I just have experience dealing with players that try to finagle the system enough to get away with things. So where I know how to deal with it. DMs are better than me get stumped on stuff like that all the time. And it's a lot of times it's just something they don't think about when they're writing the campaign or running the campaign even until it comes up.
For sure. But yeah, it's a very important mechanic to just kind of know where it is on the character sheet. 'Cause I feel like passive perception, passive insight, all those things kind of come up a fair bit.
Yeah, passive insight is one that I use quite a bit as well. So if you look to find out what your passive is other than wisdom, if you look at your skills and you find your insight, which is right here, it's a wisdom based skill. So that's going to be under your passive wisdom as well. So it'll be a 13. So say you're a sly rogue that you're not truly stealthy, but you like to walk through crowds unnoticed or something. You have a passive stealth, and that's going to be your passive dex. I know in 4th edition and 3.5 it went into all of these and broke them all down. So essentially what your passive skill is, even if you do not know what it is down here, if you don't know where this box is, just look at your ability score, and that's going to be your passive unless you have a feat that increases it or an item or something like that that will increase it. Otherwise, it's just going to be your base ability score. And below passive wisdom perception, you have your tool proficiencies. On this, it says quarry. Talk to your DM about these. Even if you're in a campaign that's using paper and pen character sheets. Because things like Navigator's Tools, if you can convince your DM that you can use Strength to use Navigator's Tools, do so, or whatever your highest score is, or lowest score, or whatever you want, really. Most DMs will say, okay, well, what makes sense for Navigator's Tools? Wisdom or intelligence or something like that. You may say, well, I have to use Strength to wheel it around, or I may have to use Dex to fine tune it, or
Yeah, it's like that's not what that's not what Navigator's Tools do, though.
I know.
That's just the wheel.
I know. Well, water vehicles, in my opinion, that's the actual wheel to steer the ship.
Okay.
Navigator's Tools is actually navigating, like
Like,
looking at
yeah.
stars and stuff like that.
Or like a sextant, for example.
Exactly.
Like something like that.
Yeah. So, yeah, like a divining rod is Navigator's Tools too. Yeah. So, I mean, you can. It doesn't specify what the tool technically is, really, unless, I mean, sometimes it does, but most of the time it just says it's tools. And you're like, well, what kind of tools? Is it a sextant? Is it a divining rod? Is it any of these things? You can talk to your DM and get it. You can even do homebrew items for yourself in your DM if your DM allows it. And like for me, a water vehicle, I had convinced a DM of a one shot one time. We were doing a pirate one shot. I convinced him that my water vehicle skill I should be allowed to use Dex or Strength. And he's like, why? I said, it takes Strength to turn the wheel and Dex to keep sure-footed through all the waves and everything else. He let me roll either one, whichever one I wanted at any time.
Amazing. Yeah, if you think you can justify using a roll with some other skill or ability, just go for it. I've definitely done that before, just because of the whole perception versus investigation thing. A couple times, like, okay, well, if I just look at it, can I roll this much higher skill? Like, please.
And that's something too that we should really talk about is perception versus investigation. So many people get confused on it. The way I tell people, perception is sight, smell, sound, taste, as long as you're not touching it. Investigation is when you're physically touching and moving stuff. That's the easiest way to remember it.
Exactly. You're actively looking through things is basically it. Yeah, there's a lot of argument on that. Instead,
I had someone say, "Well, there was a clip underneath the table. Why didn't I see that?" I'm like, "There was a rug in the way. Did you move the rug?" No. Well, then you're using perception, not investigation.
Yeah.
Then he got mad and flipped the table and then pulled the rug out from underneath the other players.
But was it a rug of smothering is the question.
Yes.
Oh my god. Yep.
So when he pulled it out from underneath them, it wrapped itself around him.
Yep. That's amazing, though. That's wonderful.
So we went over the navigation tools and the water vehicle tools. We'll move on to proficiencies in languages. These here are basically either worn items that you're proficient in, which means if you try to wear heavy armor, you're not proficient. You're going to get disadvantage on a couple of things, whether it be dex or other checks. If you're proficient in these items, you can wear them without any significant troubles. There's still some issues like heavy armor and stealth, but these allow you to wear them without any major penalties to attacks or anything like that. Languages. These are any and all languages that you can. I'm going to quote here from the book. Read, speak, and write. Now, with that being said, if you create a character like my barbarian Kirker that can't count above 10 because his intelligence isn't that high, and he can't read, but he can write the basic alphabet and has some speech. Talk to your DM about it and see what he would allow. Kirker could understand people talking, but he couldn't himself propose ideas in a way that people could understand half the time. But he only had a 3 in intelligence and wisdom, so these, like I said, by the book it says you can read, write, and speak these languages. And then your weapon proficiencies, these again are things that you wield and what you can use without any difficulty or negatives.
And adding or going back to languages a little bit, the number of languages that our characters seem to know, like, may seem like kind of low. There are a number of ways to get more language proficiencies, whether that is taking time to train during downtime. There are some races that naturally just have more language proficiencies, or at least starting out. There are backgrounds that give you language proficiencies. There are a lot of ways to do it if you're like, wow, like, well, my character doesn't really know that much, and I feel like they would know more. So there's all of that to go over. And then I would really like to add the idea of, like, this isn't talked about in D&D, but I think having more signed languages would be so interesting. That's what I actually proposed to my GM for Tyranny of Dragons. I was like, hey, instead of having Druidic being this, like, written, like, spoken language kind of thing, what if it was just a signed language? Like, that's it. And I totally went for that. So that's just something that's in the game now, which I think is really interesting. Yeah, it's definitely something that I think should be talked about more, just because I don't think people think about it as much.
I've
Yeah.
had Thieves' Cant used as a sign language
Ooh.
before. And there are homebrew languages that your DM may be adding to the game. There may also be ancient text and script that no one can read. Just like today, we find script and languages that have been buried for centuries that we don't understand. Those can still be in your D&D game. And one homebrew language that one of my players had asked me to add to one of my games is she was a traveling brothel worker and come up with a brothel script because, like in ancient England, only certain people went to brothels that were like non-taxed and stuff like that. So they actually had signs on buildings that would tell you this is what that building's for. This wasn't. So me and her worked out a way to get that into the world and use it. And there's so many others. You may say, I regret doing this to one of my earlier campaigns. Is I had a player who could speak to animals, and they wanted me to help them make a language for each animal that they spoke to.
Oh my god. That sounds so complicated.
It was, and it was a lot of work. But they're like, but
Oh
all the
my
animals in the wild speak different languages. Yes, but no. Yeah, I mean, it was a headache.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's far too complex. Like, I totally agree that that is accurate. I mean, that's how animals communicate, like, with conspecifics or contraspecific. Um, but still, that's too much. Like, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine doing that to my GM Tony once my zoologist homebrew class gets to a certain level, because at a certain level, he's going to be able to just talk to animals at will. Doesn't even have to cast it. We'll just be able to speak with them. Like, I can't imagine doing that.
We ended up doing a language for dolphins. We did a generic bird language. We did a canine language. And what was the other language? We did like two other languages, and I can't remember what they are now. But it was a lot of work, and it was.
Yeah.
I won't do it again. I'll put it that way. So with the character sheet, if we scroll up now to the top center row of items, now remember this here is just your basic PDF character sheet. This is the standard one that most DMs use. It's the one that DMs Guild and what's the other comic shop organization that runs D&D. It's the one they use. It's the basic one. So there are some that are different, like we had talked earlier, but we're just going with the basic one for now. Top of the center row, you have your armor class, initiative, and speed. Avengers League. Thank you, Purple. So your armor class is essentially meet or beat. If the enemy rolls a higher attack roll than what your armor class is, they hit you. It's that simple. I know in other editions it was a lot more numbers and a lot more breakdown, but 5e is simple. It just works exactly. So your armor class is basically 10 plus dex plus armor plus shield if you have a shield and it's equipped. But again, it also depends on what armor you're wearing. Sometimes it's just 10 plus armor. Other times it's just your armor. It's a whole bunch of things. You just have to figure out what character and class you're using and what armor you're wearing at the time. Initiative is what your bonus is to your initiative roll. So if you roll a d20, it'd be +3. For this character, it's based on your dex, and that it determines what turn or what order the turn order goes in. So you may go first, you may go last based on this roll. I have turned on for mine, and even when I was doing paper games, the decimal system. You may ask why I like doing a decimal system or how to do a decimal system. Essentially, your initiative is your dexterity modifier, and that is it. The way I do it is your dexterity modifier point your dexterity score. So, for instance, on this one, it's 3.16. Why would I do that? So, if I have two players that both roll and after adding their base initiative to it, they get the same number. This decimal system helps break that down even further. So one may have higher dex than the other, so their score would be higher, so they would go first.
Yeah, it's a really good way to do it. And if you are a little less like technologically inclined with like setting these things on like D&D Beyond or Roll20 or anything like that, you can just have players decide amongst themselves, like, hey, we have the same dex score. Do you just want to go first? And then just set that. That's what I do. But it's a little bit more complicated when you have enemies and things like that.
It is, and that's one reason why I do it, is because as a DM, and with multiple enemies usually in my encounters, I want to move fast, so I want my enemies to be stacked right and stuff like that. I don't want to just decide off fly which one goes first. But I have had instances in comic shops and stuff like that when I was teaching people how to play D&D where they rolled the same and they wanted to figure it out amongst themselves how to score it. And seeing everything from flipping a coin to best out of 3 rock paper scissors. Seen it all, but yeah.
Wow, it's so competitive. Like, I feel like my tables are so much more chill then. Like, they're just like, oh, if you want to go first, just go for it. Like,
well, that's just
so
it.
funny.
It was so chilled that like neither one of them wanted to.
Oh, okay.
So they were like, "Are you going? No, you go first. No, you go first." And I was like, and below that, or to the right of that a little bit, you have your speed. Speed is different based on the size of the creature and other things. If your character has I think Halfling gets 25 speed. Has 25 speed.
Yeah, most small creatures have 25.
Yeah.
You're going medium. You too large, honestly, would be 30, and it's mostly
I
like
think Genasi have 35 or 40, and there's a couple others that
Wood
do.
elves also do.
Yeah.
So there are a couple like little bit differences, especially once you go to like class differences and stuff too. Like any of y'all that have heard about D&D, have looked at D&D memes, have like breathed a second of D&D, know that monks go fast. Like you know this by now. It's because they have an armored movement, and that's where you put that there. It's what they're famous for.
And I think it's half orc barbarian also has a crap load of movement if there's enemies within range. So this character is 30. We're gonna keep it simple. It's 30. It's a goblin barbarian. But again, if you're filling out this character sheet, buy the book. Just look and see what the race you chose. That'll give you the base, and then what feat you choose and other things may add or detach from that a little bit. And then you get your hit points. This is based on your constitution. I'm trying to remember how it's broke down in the book. So I think first level you get, is it 10 plus? No.
I think it might depend on your class, even like at the beginning for level 1. It's
All right, first
I know
level,
they're different hit dice, but I think
you add your constitution modifier to the highest possible total for your class.
yep.
So class is a sign die. So if your hit die is a 10, it's going to be a 10
plus your con.
Yeah. If it's a D12, if it's whatever, it's whatever the max is plus your con. However, if you're a wizard and you get a D4, it's going to be 4 plus your con modifier. However, you cannot go negative. So if your con is a 3, which would be a negative 4, yeah, 4, you would not start with 0 hit points. And when you level up, you don't go down hit points.
Please don't do that to yourself.
I did that.
Ponos because he has a negative con too. Like there are very few stats that he has in the positive. I think it's intelligence and charisma. I think those are the only ones, and it is terrifying.
So the week 5th edition came out, I got the books, and I was trying to run a campaign with it at the comic shop with a bunch of people that were wanting to learn 5th edition. I went and purchased books before they had a chance to, and do a trial run, I guess you'd call it. And that was in the first printout of the books. It didn't say don't go negative, and I killed the character off by leveling up. And that's when I think it was the second printing or the third printing that they added you can't go negative with your con modifier.
Good.
I still have the first printing around here somewhere.
Oh my god.
So again, that's where your hit points go. We discussed how you add them together and how you put them in there. Temporary hit points is the box below that. These are hit points that are given to you by another character, NPC, what have you.
Ability.
Ability, exactly. These only last until either A, you lose them through combat, B, a long rest. I think even some disappear after short rest or after an hour or whatnot.
It depends on what the text tells you to do, honestly.
And they do not stack. So if you have been given 10 temporary hit points by a spell, and someone else casts to give you 5 more additional hit points, you do not get those 5 hit points. even if you have already lost some of your temporary hit points, and say you're down to 2 temporary hit points at this point, you then get to choose, do I keep those 2 temporary hit points or do I go with the 5 temporary hit points? Most people just choose whichever's most, but they do not stack.
Mhm.
And then the box below that is hit die. These are what you'd roll during a short rest, and even I think some spells call for them, or some abilities to roll for certain things. This is how many hit points you get back when you reroll. Depending on your class, determines the size of your hit die. It could be anything from a D4 to a D12.
And yeah, on short rest, you can roll as many or as few as you like. You don't have to roll them. Just know that if you roll all of them, once you take a long rest, you only get half of those back.
I think it's anything past half rolled. I may be mistaken, but I believe it's anything half past. So say you have 3 and you roll 2, I think you only get 1 back.
Yeah, or something like that.
But yeah, you only get half back usually after rolling more than half of them or all of them. I forget which. Half round down, yeah. The box next to that is death saves. What is a death save, you may be asking? I know most of us know, but for those that don't, whenever your character reaches 0 hit points, you are down. You become unconscious. You then have to roll death saves. It is a d20. Easy as that. If you get a 10 or higher, it's a success. Anything lower than 10 is a failure. 3 successes or a d20, and you stand back up wide awake. Hurting but awake. 3 failures, and you're kaput. You're dead. This does not work if you take double your max HP and damage, or certain monster skills and abilities will outright kill you, or if any of your stats scores become 0, you automatically die. So, for instance, if your Constitution becomes 0, you die. If your Wisdom becomes 0, you die. Charisma, same thing, 0, dead. And there is no saving throws or saves for those.
Yeah, taking damage to an ability is big. Like that's usually like the big game content right there. If the enemy is doing that.
I like doing
But
it
it
on my
does
players.
happen. Yeah, I've only done that like maybe one time, and I was like, "Oh my god, like this is crazy. I don't know if I'm gonna throw this at my players again." Um, just because, oh my gosh, it was a little bit traumatizing for their characters, for sure. Um, but yeah, I think I rolled a natural 20 on a death save a singular time, the only time that I can think about. Um, because we were in this big combat against this modified elder brain, basically, and we were in this very like toxic lake. So if you like went into that, like bad things would happen. You wouldn't take damage from being in there, but bad things would happen. For my character, at least, it was an alignment change, which was terrifying. Um, but yeah, I'll never forget that like everybody else was out of range for me. No one was going to be able to heal me, and I was down to one save that was going to determine everything. And I rolled that natural 20, and I was like, let's go. I had my whole turn. It was a wild thing. Oh my god. And yeah, playing a bard with that just made it better. It's like you conniving bard, you made it out. It was wild.
So
So
I'm no
it
longer
made for
allowed
very
to.
good moments.
I'm no longer allowed to speak when my players are doing death saves. Had a player, his first death save he rolled a natural 2. And I said, well, at least it's not a nat 1. The very next roll, he rolled a nat 1.
Oh my god. I was like, wait, are any of your players the ones that like GM whisper their death save? Because those are like the worst people. I
No.
can't.
Uh,
Okay, those like I understand why it brings the suspense and realistically, like yeah, you the other characters wouldn't really know like what's going on, but still as a player, I'm like, how could you do this?
um, in fact, that's one thing that I'll go over a bit is at my DM style is, especially on Roll20, since most of my games are online now, all roles are open. So like everyone sees all the roles, including mine as the DM. So I don't fudge any rolls to do damage or anything else. It's just all open rolls. People can see them all. Um, but as far as the death saves go, that character then created a new character, or that player created a new character, brought it into the campaign, and died again. This time, he rolled like an 18, and then he rolled a 2, and I was like, I'm not gonna say it. I'm not gonna say it. And then he rolled a nat 1 again, and I'm like, oh. I was like, I didn't say anything this time. He goes,
The
well, you ain't allowed to
character
speak at all.
the character doomed to die. Oh my god.
So now whenever he goes down, I'm not allowed to speak any words.
Oof.
Um, so yeah, that's death saves for everyone out there that's wondering. You got 3 successes, 3 fails, or um, a nat 20 or nat 1. Nat 1s give you 2 failed saves, I believe. Or is that a homebrew rule? I forget. Nat 20s will bring you up with 1 hit point. I know a lot of these are what they call common homebrews, which are just ones that are used for by majority of people, whether it's in the book or not. Which is something I've always said. The rules in the book are just guidelines. You can go without them or add to them. Below your death saves is going to be your attacks and spell casting. So this box here is where you're going to put all of your weapons here that you would like use to attack with. You would put any spells that you can cast that do damage. These are essentially your damage or healing abilities. These are the ones that affect hit points usually. The other spells that are more for like light and stuff like that, just keep those on your spell casting page. These here are the ones you're going to want the most access to. That's why you put them in the attacks and spell casting box.
That's where the
This,
numbers happen,
exactly.
basically.
This is also where you put your modifiers. So like rage damage. Oh god, there's a couple others. There's a bunch of them. Smites and stuff like that. You would add those in here as well. Below that is your currency. Copper, silver, electrum, gold, and platinum. I have yet to be in a campaign that uses electrum.
I've had like maybe like 2 that like have mentioned Electrum. We didn't spend it anywhere. It was just something found in the loot because no one uses Electrum. But it was there.
So, like a player of mine says, well, you've never been in a campaign that uses electrum because you're the one that always DMs your campaigns. So, yeah, that's why, because I don't use it. It's
So that one uses black market currency, is it? I didn't know that.
uh no, it's so essentially it's the only one that's not by tens.
Oh,
So
right.
copper, 10 copper equals 1 silver, 10 silver equals 1 gold, 10 gold equals 1 platinum. Electrum is, if I'm not mistaken, it's equivalent of 5 silver or
It's
6.
something like that. Like, yeah,
Odd.
I forgot about that. It's 2 gold? What?
Uh, I've heard it any number of ways. I know some people use it as um, like dignitary currency, sort of like when they go. It's a marking of a certain um, like a certain dignitary or whatever. They're given so many of these coins that they can then go to through the rest of the world, and when they hand it to them, it's good for whatever they say. And I've also heard it used like what he say, like purple says, with as 2 gold. It's Electrum's rarely ever used. But below that, you have your equipment and your total weight. As you can see here on this list, we have belaying pin, lucky charm, belt pouch. A lot of your cosmetic stuff you don't have to put down here if it's 0 weight. I always recommend putting everything that has weight to it down here. Or if you have some fancy clothes, stuff like that, put that on there. All your weapons would go down here as well. Anything you're physically carrying or would be in a bag, you want here. Now, if you have a bag of holding, I believe it's 20 pounds no matter what's in it. You're going to put that here, but you're going to create a second sheet, or even use a second piece of paper or the back of one of your character sheets. And you're going to put down all the items that are in your bag of holding, because it can only hold so many pounds of goods or items of certain dimensions before it tears or breaks. But otherwise, you don't want to add those items to your character sheet and get mixed up and add that to your carrying weight. And to figure out what your total carrying weight possible is, it is 15 times your strength. So this character can carry a lot.
Yeah, she's strong.
So that's all that would be in the center row. So since we're going to be ending in 30 minutes-ish, do we want to, before we continue on, take a quick break and give people time to put in the keyword for the entry to win the giveaway?
Yeah, that works with me.
So, what do we want the keyword to be?
Ooh. Uh, what do we want it to be this time?
Electrum.
Yeah, I was thinking Electrum. I love that. Yes.
All right, so if you want entered
Same brain, purple. Same brain.
if you wish to enter the giveaway for the year subscription to Be Neverending App's character creation tool, and you'll also get a character commission. Type Electrum in either one of the chats. I will then add it to the spinny wheel, and then at the end of the show tonight, I will do the drawing. So yeah, type Electrum in chat. For those that would be listening to the podcast when I get it posted, it'll be posted sometime tonight. Only way you can enter these giveaways is being live in our Twitch streams. And for those that have missed some of our Twitch streams, you can catch the VODs on my channel or on Sir Heckelat's channel, or you can listen to the podcast, say you're driving to work or whatnot, at almost any of your podcast stations, iHeartRadio, iTunes,
Spotify,
Speaker,
pretty sure.
Spotify, yep.
Yeah.
And to find our podcast on any of those, all you gotta do is go to their search and type Sir Heckelat or Tyne, either one of our names, and it will automatically pop it up. And it will be all of the episodes.
All right, so stick around, chat. We will be right back. And just one sec. All right, I'm ready to go whenever.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
And we're back. Hope everyone had a good break. Hope you were able to get some beverages and stretch your legs and type Electrum in chat if you're interested in getting some really cool custom character art drawn for you, or a never-ending subscription for a whole year. It's definitely a steal, just for entering our wonderful wonder wheel that we're going to show here pretty shortly. Um, if you're at all interested in that kind of thing. I took down the art that we had for Purple Phil last time, but it was fantastic. Definitely look at the other episodes if you haven't for that kind of thing.
I have it up only because Rice, the one that won last month, hasn't gotten back with me on whether his is complete or not. So I put Purple Fields back up on mine just to show
Yeah,
people
look
what it
at
looks
it.
like.
So good. Yeah, check out Tyne's stream. It looks really awesome.
They all look amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get back into um, the whole character sheet thing, I want to remind everyone we do the podcast the third Thursday every month, 7 p.m. Central to 9 p.m. Next month, we will have special guest Colton Mason. He is been a part of, let me pull up his thing, Nerdsmith. He's one of the DMs over there. He also does a lot on the back end of nerdsmith.org. Um, I don't know too much about Nerdsmith. I've heard about it and I've read about the organization, but I don't want to give false information, so I'm not going to cover too much about them. But he is part of nerdsmith.org. Um, they do D&D streams. They do D&D like group finds. So if you need a D&D group, head over there and they'll get you into a group. They do a bunch of other charity work as well. So Colton will be part of the group or part of our podcast next month, and we'll be talking about D&D gods, goddesses, and deities and the roles they play in the D&D universe.
Yes. Oh, I'm just so excited for all of that. It's a very interesting topic to broach, especially now that I'm playing in an Odyssey of the Dragonlord campaign, where I feel like the roles of gods is played with a lot. Just being based on Greek mythology and Greek literature. So I can't wait. It's going to be so cool.
My players are looking forward to that episode because, especially my Friday night players, because for those that don't know, it is called the Cursed Ones. Each of the players, along with 27 other NPCs there in the world, have been cursed where they get reincarnated every 200 years and forced into a war with each other. Half of them were chosen by gods, the other half chosen by devils, and they're starting to find out which gods they were chosen by, and if there's some of them are twin souls. They were two players born from the same soul. Others are not, and like I got almost all the official D&D deities in there. Some unofficial, and I have all the official devils in there and who they were chosen, and yeah. So they're excited seeing how like the lore of AO and the stones have played a role in that campaign. They're wanting to see how if we talk about that in the podcast or what else we talk about.
I'm very, very excited. And just like I'm just excited to have guests in general. It's like, tell me about all of your things, you know?
And we do have a guest lined up for the month after that, but we don't have a topic yet. She's going to be getting with me on what she wishes to talk about. So if you guys are wanting to become a guest on the podcast, let us know. Do I have my guest link up working yet? I don't think I do.
I do.
I had it working. It quit working last session, and I forgot to fix it. Go to that Google Doc form, fill it out. It'll be emailed to myself, and I will be reaching out to you and setting up stuff. Usually with the guests after they fill out the form, I sit down with them for 5-10 minutes, figure out what exactly they want to talk about, what time they're available, and the whole 9 yards. And then we figure out when you're going to be on the show.
So don't be shy if you don't have a lot of experience with talking on podcasts or D&D in general. Just come and talk to us. Like we'll have a great time.
Don't be shy, period.
Yeah.
We good folk.
Mm-hmm.
We the friendly NPCs, I swear.
You don't have experience talking, Purple. Well, being the D&D game show host, I don't think that's true.
That's what the evil NPCs say. Hold on. Roll insight.
Who did your voiceover, Purple? For you audio listeners, my chat is saying that uh, someone got them to or got someone to voice them instead of just talking themselves on a show. I actually lost track. Did we get through this character sheet?
Nope.
Okay.
We got this whole right side yet.
All right, let's do it.
All right. So the right side boxes, you have your personality traits, ideals, bonds, and flaws. Like we had talked about when we were choosing these, you can either roll for these based on your background, or you can come up with your own. And I think some of the modules and stuff actually have others that you can choose from. And talk with your DM when you're choosing these. If you're not choosing one of the basic ones, just make sure you have some of these filled out, because not only will it help you role play your character better, sort of to remind you where you stand in the world, but also it allows the DM to put things in the world that will trigger your personality traits, your ideals and flaws and whatnot. And then below those, you have rage and other resources, which we talked about a little bit. These are your usable resources. So, like rage for the barbarian level 1, he only has 2 rages. These are, the way I do it is different than most, and the way I tell my new players how to fill this out is, if you have a character sheet like this where it only has the 2 boxes, or if you have one that has 4 or whatnot, usually they're in rows of 2. In the left row, you're going to want to put your resources that come back after a short or a long rest. In the right row, you want to put resources that can only be increased either by finding an item or purchasing the item. So like your arrows, your bolts, your javelins, all those you're going to be in the right side. This makes it easier to, one, whenever you take a long or short rest, to refill the ones that need to be refilled. Or two, combat, after the combat ends and you go searching for your stuff, if your DM allows you to find your arrows and reuse them, it allows you to refill the right side without having to go through and read each box.
Yeah, also assuming that your DM is going to make you do that. Like I have a lot of lenient DMs that are just like, it's ammo, just have it. We're not gonna like have to track every single resource for each of these because at least with very long-term campaigns over like months time in game, like or like travel that takes months time in game, like Tyranny of Dragons, for example, it's just kind of a mess. So just like, we're just not gonna worry about it. So yeah, very dependent on campaign, on consumables in that regard.
I've also seen people put their healing potions in this area, so whenever they
Hmm.
use one, they can subtract one. But like you were saying, it depends on the campaign. I have campaigns where I let some of them just unlimited ammo, essentially. Others, I especially the longer travel times between towns, I make them track it. Not only does this affect their carrying weight, it makes them think about how they're going to encounter or how they're going to handle the next encounter. Did I use up all my arrows last time? Do I have more? And then also, if they, depending on which campaign I'm running, as far as ammo goes, if they're using it and trying to find it again, say they used 6 arrows during an encounter, I'll make them roll a d6 to see how many they find. So at least they will find one good reusable arrow. The most they can get all of them back. But
Yeah,
again,
that's
go ahead.
no, it was like, yeah, that's like I'm trying to think of like the last campaign that I had to like track those kind of things. Yeah, very similar mechanic of just searching and based on the result, how much ammo you get back. But it's been so many years at this point. I'm just like, I don't know.
It really depends on your DM. Your
Yeah.
resources do. And some DMs want everything to letter tracked. Others are a little more lenient. Some of them want you tracking things constantly. Others want you only tracking things during certain parts of the campaign. I've done a campaign to where the players had to crawl through narrow passages and could only bring a limited number of items. Um, so I made them keep track of it then. And purple, yes, we did talk about carry weight. Again, I'll cover your max carry weight is 15 times your strength score. Not the strength modifier, the strength score. And it also is affected by whether you're a small, medium, or large creature. Because I believe large creatures gain twice the carry weight or an extra X amount of carry weight, and then small creatures lose some carry weight.
I don't know that off the top of my head either. Like all of the like weight related things, I just don't even know. It's like
I had to when this one player wanted to start carrying a full arsenal plus a library plus everything that she could pick up.
ooh. Yeah, I've been lucky enough that I don't have a whole lot of tables that are like, can we take this thing? Like, it's incredibly heavy, but like, we're gonna try to make it work.
Um, and another thing too is when you can't do it on paper and pen character sheets. Sorry, um, but on your PDF or Roll20, I think even on D&D Beyond, I don't use that much, so I could be wrong. But they usually have this little plus mark below these boxes, so you can add another box. Roll20 has it. I don't know for sure if D&D Beyond does, but I know some of the other auto creators have it. This lets you add an extra box that you can put other items in, whether, like we mentioned before, health potions. Um, I've actually used this for players with pets that are combat that have some sort of combat feature, um, where they can put their pets' hit points in there, so that way they ain't gotta constantly have their pet's character sheet open. They can just have this and just subtract from their pet's hit
That's a really,
points.
yeah, that's a good idea, especially like if you were just a druid with wild shape, just having
Yeah,
that, or if you had polymorph for example. That's a really good idea. I hadn't thought of that before. I've just been tracking it on a separate piece of paper like a fool.
Yeah, on Roll20 you can put it here.
Amazing.
I
Yeah.
don't know about D&D Beyond. Like I said, I don't use it usually
Yeah,
to make
D&D Beyond
characters.
doesn't really have the same thing. So I usually just like have it next to like the little I write out the initiative every time, even if I'm a player. I'm just like, oh, this will like help me keep track of things. Um, it's kind of nice to have notes too. It's just like, oh yeah, combat happened here. What was that combat about? But yeah, usually next to that I just have whatever hit points I might have is something else.
And then this final box here, this is all your features and traits. These are your class features, your background features, any racial features, and then the traits that you pick up from leveling up. Every so many levels you get a trait or a stat increase. Some people choose to go traits, other people go stat points. With the new system that is coming out, I forget when exactly, they're going to be trait specific traits, which means you have to, like in old, I think 3.5 had it, before you can choose a particular trait, you have to choose a previous lower level trait, and they stack and they actually get stronger the higher you go. So I'm seeing a lot more people are going to go with traits at that point.
Mhm.
And that's just the front page of your character sheets.
Yeah, that's where you'll be spending the most time, though, to be fair.
Yeah, and then you're going to have your bio sheet. This here will have your age, weight, and all that up top along with your name. It also has your character's appearance. Some people just attach a picture of your character or give a brief description. Allies and organizations. This is where if you were part of City Guard, you can put that there. If you know a particular Duke, whatever, you can put that there. Additional features and traits. This is your spillover box from that first page. If you have anything that won't fit there, you can put it here. Your character backstory. This is never enough space.
Never enough space, but also like with Roll20 and stuff, like, if you don't set things correctly, other people can just kind of like look at your sheets and modify your sheets. So if you're one of those secretive people that are like, no one can know my character's backstory until the big reveal yet, don't use that.
Exactly.
Don't.
Especially if you don't know how your DM has, or the game creator, for all my games, it's the DM, it's myself, has the settings, don't use it. My settings are if the player has access to it, they literally have access, but no one else has access to that page unless I specifically give them access. Treasures, these are your trinkets and stuff like we were mentioning earlier that are fundamental to you, or even like special items that you've gotten along your journey you'd put down here. Moving along fast because I know we're almost out of time. Spells. This is where, if you're a spellcaster, where you'd find your name, spellcasting ability. For Barbarian, it's none. Others, it may be Charisma, it may be whatever. You'll have your spell save DC, your spell attack bonus. So your spell save DC is whatever your modifier is for this. Spell attack bonus, same. You get your cantrips, your first level spells, second level spells, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, and ninth. You have your spell slot total. So every level, depending on what class you are, you'll have a different number of total spell slots for each level. And then you have your spell slots remaining. And then there's a section below that where you'd put all the spells for that particular level. So on your base character sheet, you may have like 13 lines, I think, here for each one.
Yeah, and it's pretty easy to do. You can just drag and drop specific spells if they are part of like SRD. So, your regular 5e spell. Now, for homebrew and stuff, that's gonna take a little bit more to do. But it's easy enough to drag and drop stuff onto your spell list. Trying to think what else about this sheet in particular. A lot of online modules will be awesome and ask what level you want to cast things at. If they can be cast at a higher level and you have those spell slots available, that's a good thing to keep in mind. Yeah, just a lot of online modules make it very like user friendly to like keep track of things instead of like the whole pen and paper thing. Because yep, I've been there.
I
Where it's
have
like,
too.
I have to keep track of everything. Ah.
And I know D&D Beyond and Roll20 does this. I think D&D Beyond you can toggle it, but on Roll20, whenever you click a spell or an attack or anything, or even your skills, it'll ask you if you want to roll with advantage or disadvantage, and it automatically
Mhm.
chooses it for you. You can just click on which one you want. I know you guys have already seen that when I clicked on stuff. That's here. Most of the automatic things that use this will actually have those choices automatic. But that is your character sheet. Real simple, by the book, essentially. If you go with something that's homebrew, you will have to fill it all out by hand, of course. Or if you're doing pen and paper, you got to fill it out by hand. Or you can actually go online and find one of those. You can use Roll20, really not that good, but some of the others that autofill your character sheet for you and just autofill it on one of the websites and print out the PDF. I'm going to open up one of my other games real quick because you were talking about Wild Shape earlier.
Yeah, yeah.
So, what I have done for my players as the DM, so they don't see all these, of course, they just see what they have access to. I make a folder called Druid Wild Shapes, and I drag all the creatures that they can wild shape into based on their level into it. And I give them access to that folder and all the characters in there. So then all they got to do whenever they wild shape, say, let's say they wild shape into a camel. They drag it out.
Yeah, that's so dope. And is it like size
Yep, it
specific?
size
Oh,
it,
oh my God.
and they have their character sheet already
That's
available
so
for them.
cool. That's so much work.
And on top of that, it works like a normal character sheet. So say I want to attack, I just click the bite. I can choose normal or advantage or whatnot. It'll roll it automatically. I click over here and it gives me the damage. If I want to roll initiative, just click INT there. Initiative rolled. And it does everything like a normal character sheet would.
Why don't camels have a spin attack? I don't know. I don't know, Purple.
I have given homebrew attacks and stuff to creatures before. But that's just the book. And these are all these creatures here are literally from the monster manual, or they're all official, essentially. And these are official creatures that I have access to. Since I don't have all the books owned on Roll20, but I have a good majority of them, they have access to the majority of the creatures. And it's based on their level, too. But this way they can adjust the hit points as needed. I'll drag one out real quick. What's one with a decent number of hit points? So like this giant lizard here. It's got 12. So it's got 12 armor class, 19 hit points. So all the player has to do is right here in this red dot is put 19. So now it's at full health. If they take damage, they can adjust it from here. And it will automatically adjust it for them.
Yeah.
It also has this. So say they want to take a short rest as this creature, or this creature's maybe their mount, and they're taking a short rest and they want to give their mount some hit points back. During short rest, they can hit that and figure out the hit points it gains. I do this. It's just one thing that me as a DM. It's for me. It makes the player's life easier.
Yeah, for sure. Because I, at least when I do with my druid, I just have like the Donjon list of like beasts open, and I'm just like, okay, like what thing like sounds good to transform into right now? Then I look at it, look at the stats, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's the one, or no, that ain't it. Then I go with it. It's a lot of tracking on my end, but that's I don't know. It's quite all right with me. I'm not really tracking anything else, so.
Another one, if you are using, say, you're using a laptop from home or you're actually playing in a game, use the 5e Tools bestiary and have it select all those boxes, and then down here select what CR level you're choosing. So you can go up to level 2 and choose Beast and hit save, and it'll pull up every beast that's official that's CR 0 through 2. And you can just choose what you want to transform into, and it will pull up everything right here for you.
It's awesome.
So now, giveaway. We've only had 2 people enter. Did I miss anyone in your chat?
I don't think so. I've been watching.
So, Purple Phil, did you actually enter or did you type it into as like a secret word? I didn't tell you to spin yet, dang it.
He suggested
Oh, type a suggestion.
Electrum. Yeah.
Well, Yo-Mate won anyways with that spin. He was the only other person to enter, so.
Anybody else? No? Okay.
If no one else wants to enter, we'll give them a minute or two.
I see you in here, Dan. Are you curious about it? Do you want some amazing character art?
I
Some extra
got
amazing
Love
characters?
Shack, Kill 'Em All, Impress, and Arwen.
How about you, Mr. Rogers? Hmm. Hmm.
Any of you guys can enter.
And free stuff, yes.
If you want to enter, just type Electrum in chat.
All y'all gotta do is type Electrum in chat. Either one of our chats. It doesn't matter which one.
All but one person in my chat has a year sub to it already.
It's some pretty awesome art.
Make that 2 people in my chat. But I think one of them's AFK.
Alright, we got another Electrum in chat. It's a 50-50 shot.
And for those that have entered, the way it's going to work is I'm going to spin the wheel. Yeah, it's a D2. And whoever's name it lands on, I will message you through Twitch. So please make sure your Twitch messages are on. I'll ask you for your email address. And then I will email you the information you need along with CCing it to the Neverending crew over there, and they will get in touch with you and figure out what character you want designed. We get you some details on there. I think it only comes with 2 revisions, and then the year subscription to be neverending.app. What they'll do is once you have a free subscription to it, they will then tack on the professional or whatever it's called subscription on top of it, because you can make a free trial subscription for like I forget if it's a month or a week or whatnot, and then they'll tack on the others, so it gives you more options and stuff like that to create your character on. Is that going to be it? I don't see anyone else entering.
I think that's it.
All right, you'll mate one.
Congrats.
Make sure you guys come back every month.
Because we're doing this every month. It's not just this one.
Yeah, every month we're doing a giveaway. In every month there'll be another character commission and a year subscription. Trying to think of what else we got going on. We got the gods discussion next month. So you want to do the farewell to everyone and tell them where they can find us?
Sure thing. Okay, I'll start first. Hey everybody, it's me, Sir Heckalot. You can find me on all of the social medias at Sir Heckalot, including the one that you're watching right now, my Twitch channel. You can find me on Twitter and Itch and Instagram, even on Fiverr. I've started doing some overlay commissions. So if you really like what I've made here and what's sitting around us on this overlay, maybe hit me up. I also do things like social media kits and all of that. So if you're looking to spruce up your social medias and all of that, hit me up. It's likely in my link tree down below. In terms of the TTRPG space, I'm kind of everywhere. I don't really stay in one spot. But I'm going to be having a big week with TPK coming up. I'll actually shout out TPK Roleplay in a bit. But I will be there on Tuesday for Oathsworn, Odyssey of the Dragon Lords, on Thursday for Queen's Gambit, our Tyranny of Dragons campaign, and then continuing to guest on Cold Hands Warm Hearts, our Frost Maiden campaign. Just this last episode though. After that, I'm gonna be gone from that one. But then on Sunday, you can find me on Neon Lights Roleplay with the Violet Sea, a tri-system campaign, which is entirely made up by our GM himself, Tate Washburn. So definitely check that out if you like homebrew systems and all of that. But I think that is what I have coming up for just the next week. I can't really think that much further ahead, or I think my brain might explode. So just follow me on social medias to follow where I'm going next. Yeah, moving on over to Tyne.
So I can be found on tynesdungeon.com or on Twitter at DungeonsTyne. You can find me here at Twitch TV/TynesDungeon every Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 p.m. Central as I DM multiple campaigns. I will be starting back up on another Monday campaign. It'll be a continuation of a campaign that had ended because some players had to leave. I'm just waiting on the confirmation from some of the original players before I start that back up, because I'm going to try to bring in as many of the original players as I possibly can, and then bring in some new players on top of that. Like I said, Tuesday and Wednesday I already have campaigns. Wednesday night is my new player campaign. All the players in there, except for one, are brand new players. Most of them are brand new to D&D. One is only new to like online D&D, but he's played paper and pencil before. And then one of them is an experienced player that helps me try to teach them how the ropes and how to play. And then Friday is my big campaign that's already been going on for 2 years now. Got an amazing crew there. They'll make you laugh. They're great. Other than that, you can find me anywhere that Sir Heckalot is playing D&D at, where I'm giving her disadvantage.
Yeah. So, okay, sometimes it's advantage when it matters. When it matters, it's
When it matters,
advantage.
it's advantage. The rest of the time, it's disadvantage.
Yeah,
Um,
just
but
kind of used to it. Tony also does that to everybody, so.
I am literally all over the webs, helping and talking to D&D things with people, whether it be like this podcast where we're doing discussions of how to do this, how to do that, or actually talking about gatekeeping and how to keep things running smoothly at your table. You can also find me on TikTok where I discuss everything from fishing, hunting, outdoors, farming, and D&D. So I am everywhere. So with that, I wanted to give one last shout out to BeNeverEnding.app, our amazing sponsors. Jamie was with us last month. He's the CEO of them. They have agreed to continue doing the giveaway with us. So we all need to thank them. They're an amazing group of people over there. But that is all I have.
Oh, I'll see you around, chat. Thank you for joining us. We had a really great time. And we'll see you next month.